Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Money with Alpha. This week, I wanted to talk about AI. Everybody seems to be talking about it, and I have sort of avoided it a little bit because it's just everywhere. But I thought it's probably worthwhile actually having the conversation because AI can be really useful in relation to money and managing money. But it's also important to understand what it's useful for and where it falls down. So I guess the first thing I wanted to point out is the obvious. It is, what does it stand for? It's artificial intelligence. So by artificial, by definition, means it's not real. By real in this case, it's not human. Now, the way it responds can feel extremely human. I've heard some horror stories about how people are using AI and how seriously and how like personally they're taking the responses they get back. But the responses are just coming from a bot that's pulling answers off the mega web of data that or information that's out there. And it's not always accurate. And it's not human. It doesn't know you, even though some of the things it might be coming back with might feel particularly, relevant and applicable to you. It still doesn't know who you are. Humans, while each one of us is as unique as our fingerprints, there are a lot of common issues and problems that we experience in our lives. And it will depend on our culture and our geographic location and our gender and a lot of other things as well. Um, and there are multiple people who will experience that, but fundamentally, you are still human and unique, and we can't outsource our humanity to a machine. So I'm going to talk in this episode about what AI can and can't do and what it's good for and where I would caution against using it as well. So I guess before I launch into that, two funny story, well, I shouldn't say funny, two interesting stories that I've heard around the use of AI. One of them was in relation to maps. I remember reading once that a couple had actually died by using the GPS on their in a car. I don't know if it was their car or a rental car now, and they'd actually driven off a cliff, like literally. And I'm sitting there going, how do you not notice that you're getting dangerously close to a cliff? But the GPS had taken them there on the basis that there was a road there, but there wasn't. I was like, at some point, there wouldn't some human alarm bells start to ring and go, well, hang on a minute, this isn't looking right. There's something not right here. If we don't have that level of human connection to our own intuition, then we can really get into some dangerous situations. A good friend of mine is a counselor, and she said a lot of people are using it as like a counseling service as well. And in one particular case, and I think they've changed how it's designed and the sorts of because it's still being driven by humans, but it's sort of allowed to run free to a certain extent. But some of the responses was, well, you have nothing left to live for, so why don't you just end your life? And I'm there going, what? A machine is telling people to do this and they're doing it. Like I was like, goodness me, the where is our humanity gone? So I mean that's in its extreme. So what I'm talking about today, it's a lot more benign than that. But in terms of what it can and can't do, so what it can do and what it's really good at is analysis. It's taking data and turning that data perhaps into something that's a little bit more digestible. It's also really good at automating tasks. So if you wanted to have a particular task, like every month you wanted, I don't know, and even to be honest, bank statements, I've gone down this path quite a lot, which is why I've ended up sort of have created my app Prosperess, is because pure AI is actually not that great on its own at pulling data and analyzing it and spitting it back out again in a way that's digestible. It actually took quite a bit of tweaking for me to get the app to the point where pulling the data in a way that's digestible. Because a lot of the banking data doesn't come out particularly digestible. So utilizing the open AI or API, sorry, banking allowed the data to come in and then AI was there to do some of the analysis. It still is somewhat flawed. Like I think I still need to keep teaching it each time because I'm using the app myself and loving it. Like I literally now I used to check off my credit card statement with receipts and now I'm like, I don't need to do that anymore because the app gives me all the level of visibility that I need. So I don't do that anymore. And it took me a little while. So I still probably did it for another couple of months. And then now I'm like, what am I doing this for now? Just, the app's doing it really, really well. So So AI can be good for if you wanted to pull in some information, ask it to analyze it for you. You can put in some calculations, or you can say, oh, look at this and this website. How does it tell me how to calculate my retirement number? Here's my age, here's when I want to retire, and it can tell you things like that. And I mean, to be honest, you can get those calculators off some websites like the Money Smart website anyway. I mean, my app has it built in, but it's built in there because I want everything all in one place. So I've kind of replicated some of that sort of math in a way that sits there, but that's because the answers then link to something else. So it can do the things that you know to ask it to do. That's probably where I feel like it falls down a bit because we don't know what we don't know. And you can say to the app, or not to the app, sorry, to AI, you can say, or tell me everything I need to know about money. It's going to regurgitate a ton of information. Some of it's probably going to be contradictory, and not all of it's relevant to you. So the level of discernment is something that it can't do. It doesn't know what you already know. It doesn't know what you need to know and why, what the underlying question is behind it. It will just answer the question you've asked it. But if you ask a human that question with the right experience, they'll be like, okay, so why is it that you want to know that? Like, let's dig a bit deeper. Let's go down a level and go, okay, what is it that's driving the question? That level of human intelligence you won't get from an AI bot because they don't have real life experience. They don't have the depth of knowledge that you need in order to understand the drivers behind and the contextual complexities that can drive human behavior and emotions. So analyzing data, so putting your bank statements in there as long as it can read the formatting, because that's the part that I often had difficulty. That's why I actually created the app, was because I was trying to use AI, but it couldn't really read the formatting that was coming from the banks well enough. So I was like, I need to do this a different way. But if you can get the data in there and you ask it the question that you want the answer to, it will answer the question. You can prod it to ask you more questions, but again, it's not really going to understand the nuances perhaps behind the questions that you're asking. It can help you calculate things. Like if you want to say, I want a net worth calculator, it will create that for you. Although I did create one and I still had to tweak it a bit because it wasn't doing some of the things I wanted it to do. Because again, there's things like inflation and time value of money in terms of, growth and returns and tax and all sorts of other things that are built in there, which I know to add to it. But unless you know to add to it, you're going to be missing some of the pieces there. So then it can also help you then go, okay, well, this is what my net worth is now. I can calculate my retirement number, and it can give you those two, bringing it together and understanding the lifestyle component that it can't do. So that human integration connection piece is where the artificial intelligence won't do what a human intelligence can do. So if you want to understand what your lifestyle goals are, what your core values are, AI won't help you with that. If you want to dig deeper into what your identity is around money, your beliefs, your stories, and your habits, you can probably put in some of your behavior and some of the things you're like, oh, money feels hard because blah. What it's going to do is it's going to pull on everything it finds on the internet, genericize it, stereotype it, and regurgitate something back to you, which may or may not land. Some of it may land, some of it may not, but it doesn't know your whole history. Unless you've written a memoir or you've got detailed notes from, years of going to see a therapist and you can upload them into there, it's still not really going to understand you. So that is where artificial intelligence really falls down for me, is when you need more than just the numbers and the data. You need the human connection and the human purpose behind it. Saying to someone, the machine can say to you, oh, well, you just need to save $50 a month, or you just need to invest $100 a month. And here are some areas you can invest in. Well, yeah, you can do that. But if it were that easy, you'd be doing it already. There's something that's creating a barrier there that's holding you back. That's the part that's valuable. That's the part that's going to be the game changer that will shift the needle for you to actually help you keep the habit of that 50 or $100 a month. So that's where it won't help you, unfortunately. Well, fortunately or unfortunately, I still think humans are, well, from a data analysis perspective, obviously, it's the same sort of concept. I'm just going to digress. I was watching the movie Hidden Figures recently with my daughter, And they had the human computers, which were the mathematicians doing the calculations for NASA back in the 1950s and 60s, before the IBM came into being. And in those days, the IBM, I think it was the International Business Machine or something like that, took up an entire room. That one computer took up an entire room, but it could do the calculations in a split second that it might take, minutes or even hours for a human computer, in inverted commas, to do. So that sort of thing, yes. But then the interpretation of the numbers, and then the at the end of the movie, when John Glenn was actually having to go into space, he's just like, there's something wrong with these numbers. They just don't feel right. So he wanted the human to check them, and she checked them, and there was an error. So if they've been programmed incorrectly, then the split second or the 1 degree would have made a huge amount of difference for an astronaut re-entering the atmosphere, and he would have landed in somewhere completely wrong and may have died. So it became life or death. And the human is the one who could actually discern from experience and knowledge what the actual right result was. So it's important to understand there's still the value of human intelligence over artificial intelligence and use it for what it's actually meant to, which is to help with repetitive tasks, to give you some inspiration perhaps when it comes to writing things. It's not there to write for you. Your humanness, like now, for example, I'm not getting AI to replicate me and be me on a podcast. I'm going to use AI to extract a transcript from this so that it can help me repurpose some of the content. But I still go in and rewrite stuff anyway. I go in and I add things to it. Even when it's using my words, the way it's taking my words, I'm sometimes like, that's not what I meant, or that's not how I would express it. So I'm going to go in and change that anyway. And there's nothing quite writing from scratch. I don't know, it just stimulates a different part of the brain. Anyway, I could go off on a tangent there. So having and also understanding what you can and can't do and what, the structure around things, like, the systemizing parts. What parts of your money management do you systemize and what parts do you not? What parts can you automate? What parts not? How do you implement some of these? What are some of the barriers that have prevented you from doing this before? It can prompt you and you can say, oh, I need some help with this, and it can give you back some very cold, generic, again, stereotypical responses. But at the end of it, you're talking to a bot, and as humans, we're social creatures. Even if we're introverts, you still need to have that human connection to feel heard. You're not going to feel heard by a machine. So if we're doing this to try and either save money or save time, to a certain extent it will, but then we're just going to come right back to the same problem of, why can I not do this? What's the missing piece? So if you're looking at AI and I'm just purely talking about money here at the moment, is just help it to do some analysis, to help find trends, to maybe repackage some information into a graph that might make it easier for you to digest, find some trends. You can even say to it, here's my business P&L, and here are 12 statements from my bank. There's privacy issues potentially with that, because the amount of hoops around privacy and security I've had to go through to secure my app it's, is a lot. So I don't know what their open AI kind of privacy and security is. So you'd have to investigate that for yourself. But if you're happy to put all that information in there, it can do some analysis for you and spit out a result. And then you've got to go, okay, well, what do I do with this now? That's the next piece, is how do I actually implement this? It can't go to a bank and either open or close an account for you. It can't go to an investing platform and open or close an account for you. It may be able to place a trade if you give it some parameters, and close out, but you still have to understand what's going on. You can't outsource all this yourself. That's one of the things I found when I started on this journey, and I did essentially outsource it to a financial planner. And I'm like, I don't want to outsource it. I want to understand this. I want to actually know what's going on here so I can make changes. I can understand the decisions. I can understand the results. I can see where I'm going and understand what it is that I'm actually trying to achieve, because then it needs to link back to, what do I actually want money for? And what kind of lifestyle do I want? How do I want it to feel? How much ease do I want? You're not going to get all that kind of thing from a bot, but it does have its place. So it's really more being human and thinking and contemplating what it is that you actually really want and the kind of support that you want. Do you just want some data analysis? you can definitely do that with AI. And then I used AI to help me build my app. But it took a heck of a lot of time in some of the areas of the app because I do lots of things in there. I've got the day-to-day money management, I've got the wealth building side, I've got the retirement side, self-managed super fund side, the business side. There's lots of moving parts to come together. The part that I found the most difficult to vibe code was all of that connection and integration, trying to explain to it what I wanted it to show me. The loan calculator alone, how to actually show what's the impact if I do fortnightly repayments, what's the impact of inflation, what's the impact of one-off, showing it in a way that's actually useful and digestible. It sounds simple, but it took the bot a long time to figure out. I had to keep on going back and saying, no, no, this way, no, no, this way, no, no, stop changing the axes on me. Just keep your Y and X axes the same. So I had to go back and forth quite a bit. I was actually surprised at how unintelligent it was at trying to understand that. Some of it may have been the way I was communicating it, but in a way a human communicates, the machine doesn't always understand it. It will interpret based on what it's familiar with. And if you're asking something that it's not overly familiar with, then it's going to spit something back that's not useful and sometimes just outright incorrect. I was doing some research recently in relation to superannuation. And it came back with data that was like 3 years old, but made it sound like it was recent. And I was like, no, no, those limits are from like 2023. They're not like 2026 limits. And that rule has now changed. So it's not necessarily going to be as accurate. And you can look at the references now because a lot of them, even your chat GPTs do that. Um, but then you've got to go onto those websites. And basically, you're basically checking the bot to make sure it's giving you the right information, especially if you're going to rely on it for any kinds of major decisions, which is where you talk to your professionals. You talk to your accountants, you talk to your bookkeepers, you talk to your financial planners, depending on what area you actually need help with. You talk to your lawyers. You can talk to money management professionals like myself. It's that's what we do. We specialize in these areas because there is a level of complexity that you can't just resolve by asking artificial intelligence. So have a think about what it is that you actually want AI to do for you, and think about the concept of artificial intelligence versus human intelligence and whether it's a data problem or a human issue that needs to be understood and resolved. So that's a bit of a brief one today, but I just wanted to, it's come up so often and in relation to and because I had an incident recently where the data was just plain wrong. And I thought, oh my goodness, I hope people are not relying on this stuff. I needed to talk about it. And yeah, so if you have any questions in relation to this, just please reach out. If you've got some information back and you like trust your intuition. This is the most powerful thing you have as a human. Trust the information that's coming to you, even if it's coming from a human. If it just doesn't feel right, it may not be. So ask another human about their experiences or ask another professional and seek another opinion. I mean, that's why even in the human space, we have multiple professionals and we can go seek out their advice and go, okay, well, how should I do this? And then you get an answer back and you're like, it's again, the financial planner I had. I just had doubts about. I was like, so I don't understand why you're doing this, and then couldn't answer them. I thought, okay, right. There's something not right here. So if your intuition is telling you something that's incorrect, even if it's coming from a human person, human intelligence, then go seek out a different answer until it feels right for you. So with that, this human is signing off and enjoy your week, and I'll catch you in the next episode.